So when it becomes time to sell your property, whether it's a house or an apartment, there are many, many different strategies, and there's different strategies for houses and for apartments. If it's an investment apartment and it's rented out, it'll be a different selling strategy, obviously, than if it's the family house. So today's video is I want to just discuss with you the general way of dealing with the estate agent. So most people's idea, let's say you have an investment apartment to sell. Most people's idea is that you call the rental management agent, ask them for a price. What do you think my apartment would sell for? Have you sold many in the building? What's the market like? These are the general questions that you tend to ask the agent. When I'm speaking to an agent, if a client engages my selling service to help them sell their property and they ask me to interview the agents, when I'm talking to an agent, my first call is probably going to last 45 minutes to an hour, and there's 20 or 30 questions I'm going to ask the agent while I take extensive notes so that I can advise my seller professionally and accordingly. And there's no script for those questions. That's the problem. I can't give you a link to the script with the 20 or 30 questions because the questions change depending on the agent's answer. As an example, if the agent hasn't sold any apartments in that particular building, then the questions go on to what have you sold nearby? What have you sold that is similar? Was those apartments better or worse than my client's apartment? What floor were they on? What was the view? Who were the buyers? Were they owner occupiers or were they investors? Were they from interstate? Were they from overseas? Were they from around the corner? There's all these questions, and you've got to gather all the information from the agent. You see, when most people are selling, they generally only do it a couple of times in their lifetime. They may sell a couple of investment apartments and, the home they live in every 5 or 10 years. So it's not something that they're familiar with and that they're doing every day. For those of us in the industry, including the agent that you're going to appoint, we're doing it every day. We're in the business every day. We're looking at properties. We're talking to sellers. We're talking to buyers. We're talking to agents if you're a seller's advisor like I am. And so you get a really good feel for the market and also a good feel for that particular agent. And if you're not involved in the market every day and you're not doing it every day, I found generally that the conversations that my sellers will have with the agent last no more than 20 minutes. And the agent tells them how they're going to sell it, what method they're going to use, roughly what price they're going to get, how long it'll take to sell it. And the client runs out of questions. But my conversations, as I mentioned, go on 45 minutes to an hour, not only to get a feel for the market, but also to get a feel for that agent and what his underlying philosophy about what price he can get for that particular apartment, talking about an investment townhouse or an investment apartment. When you're selling the family home, most sellers will find an agent through probably the fridge magnet that they've got on the fridge, or they'll do a quick Google search, or they've perhaps seen a sign in the neighborhood and they'll contact that agent. It's not that many sellers. In fact, I would say it's very few sellers that actually interview 2 or 3 agents. Quite often they may interview 2, but quite often it's the first agent. And that's why the agents are very aggressive to be the first agent to get to see you. You'll notice that if you've rung up an agent, if they find out that you're genuinely interested in selling, they'll want to come out and see you and give you a presentation that afternoon. And then they'll try and sign you up for an exclusive agreement for 120 days, generally speaking. And then they might try and get you to do an auction if they think that that's the best way it will sell. It's very few sellers who will then take a step back and say, maybe there's a better agent out there. My philosophy is always to talk to 3 agents and to have conversations with 3 agents and to get their proposals. They're all, as a general rule, very nice people. And they've all, if they've been in the business more than 5 minutes, they know how to sell their properties. So you've got to try and judge which is the one that's going to get you the best price with the least hassle in the shortest period of time. And that takes a combination of the questions that I mentioned earlier, market experience, market knowledge, and the ability to know which sales method will be the best for your particular property. You see, there is no one specific method to sell a property. There are expressions of interest, obviously auctions, private sales. There's a price range you can go in. For example, I had a client recently who wanted a property to be sold for between $500,000 and $550,000. It was an apartment. But after a long conversation with the preferred agent, we went to the market at $495,000. It had to have a 4 in front of it, this particular apartment. As soon as you put a 5 in front of it, you blew the potential buyers away. They went into a different price band on realestate.com.au and domain. And then you can get very close to that figure. So if you end up with 2 or 3 potential buyers in that just under the $500,000 price range, then there may be a competitive environment where one person will really like it, or really want it, or really want that building, or really is ready to buy, and your property is available right now. No tenants, beautifully cleaned, presented and staged. And you might have a competitive environment, and then they'll go over the 500. That's just an example of how pricing is very important, and the agents will stress that. And most people's view is that the agent's always trying to get you to put the lowest possible price, and there's certainly some truth in that. But sometimes the agents also see the opportunity to get a really high price and to push buyers up if the property's exceptional, and that helps their remuneration as well. So quite often the agents are also very keen to try and get you the highest price. So there is, as I mentioned, there is no one rule for everybody. If the market's falling and you have a fixed price, there's only one way the price is going, and it's certainly not up. You see, property pricing in Australia, particularly if you're an overseas seller, where you're used to square meter or square foot prices, it's more of an exact science. And in Australia, there's no specific pricing per square meter or per square foot. It's really taking into account the views, the quality of the property, the size, the finishes, the design, the floor plan, the exact location, the age. And I'm also strongly of the view that the agent should be a local expert wherever possible. So any agent can list a property. So that brings me to another point, just before I go explain about why the agent should be a local. If you ring your property manager, they may be even located 20 or 30 kilometers away, but there's not an agent that I've ever met who ever says no to a listing when you ring them up. Hello, Michael, could you list my property? I'm the owner of such and such a property. What do you think it's worth? Well, I think it's probably been that price. What's the best method to sell it? I think it's that. Would you be able to handle it for sale? Absolutely, I can handle it for sale. That's the agent's answers. The agents are not going to say, I'm probably not that suitable because I actually don't know that building, don't know that street, don't know that location that well. I'll refer you to Billy Bob, who's around the corner. They would be a much better agent for me. They know that building. That is never going to happen. When there's a 2 or 3% commission involved, I'm telling you that will never happen. So the agent will take on the listing. And that's why you need to make sure you choose your agent carefully. And that's where my selling service can often help people, because I can interview the agents on your behalf, check their records, check their sales records, check their reputations, have a long chat to each one, as I say, usually roughly for 45 minutes to an hour, ask them the 20 or 30 questions, and then work out the best agent from there. But I am strongly of the view that the agent should be, wherever possible, a local agent, so they know the schools. They know the cafes, they know the restaurants, they know the bus routes, the train routes, the tram routes. They know the shops, the cafes, the laundries, the restaurants nearby, the recreational facilities, the parks, the bike tracks. When you're selling a house or an apartment, you need to be able to give that information to the potential buyers. So that's very important. It's often not a numbers game. If it's a pure investor buying, of course it's a numbers game. The rent return is X dollars per week. The purchase price is X dollars. Therefore, the return is X percent. And get a building report, the property's in a good condition, you like the property, off, you go ahead and buy it. But if it's a owner-occupier, somebody going to move into the property, a couple, so somebody with a young child, if it's an investment apartment, then all those things, childcare, where the nearest childcare centre is, where the nearest gym is, there's many things that the local agent should know. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a brief understanding of of dealing with agents and helping you move forward down the track to selling a property in Australia.